Very good morning to you all, ladies and gentlemen. I was actually hoping that you'd bring me out with that Boom Shaka jam. Now, what happens with that music? But never mind, we'll take it. Well, there you go then. As AK alluded to, I will be handling this panel discussion on a very important subject. And it's under the theme, Youth, Employment and Entrepreneurship, Securing South Africa's Future. It's a timely discussion to be having, especially after we've just had exactly a week ago the State of the Nation address, which sets the tone and sets the vision for us as a country. Listening to the Mkombandlela, the Musupatzela, as you like, what the Chief Justice actually referred to the President, of course, once in one of his seminal judgments as the national pathfinder, setting an agenda for us. And one of the things that was addressed, one of the many things that the President addressed, of course, in his address was the issue of youth unemployment. As AK just reiterated the figures, they are quite staggering, really. I mean, 55% unemployment rate amongst young people, a GDP that shrunk by 3.7%, hardly the kind of numbers or background that really gives you confidence in our ability to push back against the scourge of unemployment, one that must be pushed back against. One of the things the President, in fact, in his State of the Nation address, the President did describe it, the challenges facing us, and as far as youth unemployment is concerned, as the brutal reality is that when it comes to youth unemployment, we have to run just to remain in the same place. That is frightening when you actually sit down and digest that. And then apparently he said, Wakanda. WTF. What is that? Is it not amazing, though, about our propensity as a nation to get distracted and almost completely lose focus, almost as if we're actively self-sabotaging? When the numbers that I've just quoted, we somehow still find a way of sweating the small stuff, as they say. Nevertheless, back to the lecture at hand here. Unemployment amongst the youth, of course, unemployment drives inequality and exclusion. Inequality and exclusion are a heady mix that we find in that much vaunted ticking time bomb. So to help me diffuse this time bomb, I'm going to invite my panelists, and I'll introduce them in no particular order. First up, and let's give him a particularly warm welcome. The man is from Qwaqwa. It's freezing cold at this time of the year. He's a lecturer in the Department of Community Development at the University of the Free State, Qwaqwa campus. Gcina Mthengwane. And while he makes his way up, let me also invite to join us up here the Chief Executive Officer of Big Brand Media, Lebogang Ramodike. Following Lebogang into the boardroom is the Chief Operating Officer at Nedbank, Mr. Mfundo Nkuhlu. Please take a seat anywhere there. And then also with us this morning, the CEO of the Youth Employment Service, or just known for short as YES, Tashmila Ismail Saville. And the Executive Manager responsible for Entrepreneurship and Corporate Development Services at the Services CETA, Liesel Koschlich, which I learned this morning actually means precious and delicious. Not Liesel, but the Koschlich part. Yeah. All right. Well, there you have it. There we have our panel for our discussion this morning. And I'd like to start off just very briefly by asking each of you just to put it into perspective and let us understand the work that you are doing in your various spheres. Starting with you, Gcina, since I called you up first, talk to as an academic, from an academic point of view, and your particular focus, community development, and how, of course, you address this very important subject that we're dealing with this morning.
Thank you very much, Titi. Greetings to everyone present here today. I've been introduced, so you know my name. It's Gcina Mthengwane. I'm from the University of the Free State's Qwaqwa campus. I work there in the Community Development Department. So I have a strong affiliation to youth unemployment, as I myself have been an unemployed young person with a university degree, in fact with 2 university degrees. So it's both, so I'm wearing both a personal and an academic cap in this discussion. Well, I would like first to problematize the questions around youth unemployment, because we're always looking for solutions to youth unemployment, but I don't think we ask ourselves enough how we facilitate the transition from dependence to independence through either employment, entrepreneurship, self-employment, or subsistence employment, which is a new term that I'm hoping to bring to prominence. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think to move forward with regard to issues around youth unemployment is to ask a better question of how do we help young people transition to a point of independence, be it through entrepreneurship or be it through employment.
And before you delve deeper into the subject, I know what you want to get into the heart of it. I'm going to come back to you. I'm going to give you an opportunity. I just want to go around and give everyone an opportunity just to briefly just summarize and explain to us. Let me come to Lebogang Ramodike, who's Chief Executive Officer of Big Brand Media. A bit deceiving, that name, because it almost suggests as if you're in advertising or something, but you're also doing very pointed work in this field as well.
Yes, Titi, I'm a young person. I'm going to refer to you. 8 hours. Yeah, so I'm here to repeat. Well, Titi, I'm a social entrepreneur, and I use popular culture to address issues on the ground. So my key focus area, I work with a girl child, which we have an empowerment program that's called the Girl Child of Determination Empowerment Program. We aim to assist young girls that are beneficiaries of the social grant. The idea is to build a mindset of self-reliance. The idea is to speak to them around, you can start your own business, you can follow this particular career stream in terms of employment opportunities. So we have practical conversations. We use master classes, we have working groups where we have the experts there. And the last thing that we do, you apply on site. We don't do brochures. We don't do ministerial imbizos where we leave brochures everywhere. You apply on site. So hopefully today we'll find someone who'll sponsor free Wi-Fi. Our CVs can go to Netbank, Babumfundo, our young people that are affected by HIV and AIDS, that are orphans and that are beneficiaries of social grants, are going to send you their application CVs, and they'll also send them to the YES initiative.
There you go.
All right.
Lebogang is bringing the fire. All right. Okay. Let's go on to Lisa. Lisa, as I mentioned, also is the executive manager responsible for entrepreneurship and corporate development at the services seats. I think we're all familiar with the seats, but let's just very briefly as well, let us in on specifically the work that you're doing with the services seats.
Okay. Great, thank you. Good morning, everybody. So we're one of 21 seaters, and seaters, contrary to what I think majority of people believe, is that we don't implement training and development. We work as the bridge between the world of education and the world of work. And so we need to connect what the supply side is doing and need to connect it to the demand side. So we need to look at the mismatch between skills, and we need to plug that mismatch through products. So the reality is that the services seat is responsible for new venture creation qualifications, as well as business advisory services qualifications, and both of those then sit within the supply side on the one hand and the demand side on the other. And we also have recognized that the offerings that we currently have are not necessarily meeting the needs of entrepreneurs. So we have conceptualized a program of action that is going to look at more applied learning and support, developing new content, new products that will service both the entrepreneur as well as enable and fund the supply side. In reality, startups can't really afford business advisory and BDS services. So how do we then enable, through product development, the facilitation of funding through all the seaters, not just the services seater, that covers all economic sectors, that will be able to ensure that there's access to reliable and quality and professional services to entrepreneurs at the different stages of their life cycle. And so our solution is very much taking a cognizance of needing online solutions as well as practical solutions, reaching both rural areas as well as the inner city. Township revitalization is a big part of that. So there's various initiatives that fall within that program of action.
All right. Then let me come on to you, Mfundo Nkutlu, of course, from Nedbank. The banks often, are the big banks particularly, accused of not doing enough to support, the small businesses and the startups and so on. But just talk a little bit about, from a Nedbank point of view, where you enter the fray.
Thanks, Titi. Certainly in the bank, as Chief Operating Officer, I'm responsible for back office and shared services environment, as well as our businesses in the rest of the continent. My entry point into the conversation, of course, is that as an institution, we invested heavily in supporting the creation of opportunities for youth. That stems from a premise that the single biggest impediment to youth employment is the fact that they do not have previous experience. And so in partnership with YES, we've created an avenue where we can bring the youth to have hands-on, first-hand experience in the world of work. We're doing that with our partners, not just within the bank, but also supplier base and clients who also want to make a contribution in this regard. Clearly, when you think about it all, you've got to ensure that the people who are coming through have the requisite skills. In the absence of a full set of qualifications, at least the potential to grow into the new roles. And then as an institution, we give them a helping hand to break through that. We're having to do this in an environment where the world of work is changing dramatically. Right. And so the big question when we get into the conversation is to answer what it is that we're solving for. Because I do not think we're solving for the 20th economy, 20th century economy. This is the 21st century economy, and what is the degree of mismatch of skills supplied versus what is required. Okay.
Let me stop you at that point and come to you, Tashbila. As has been mentioned already by Mfundo that, of course, you work in partnership as the YES initiative. It's a partnership between government and private sector. But just to expand a little bit more on the kind of interventions that you make and how you are doing with your work as a youth employment service.
So YES is a registered not-for-profit organization. We're business-led, and we work in collaboration with government and labor. We innovate along 4 lines. So we've got a single purpose, employment creation for youth. And how we do that is innovate along 4 lines. The first big innovation was a policy change, an amendment to the Codes of Good Practice, a fantastic amendment that actually rewards companies for investing in youth employment. So for all the businesses in the room, if you invest in youth employment in the big way Nedbank has done, you can get a level or even 2 levels up on your BE scorecard. So this is an amazing give by the DTI that shows how important this is on government's radar. The second space that we're doing a lot of innovation in is you can't do a scaled national project without really investing in digital technology and the delivery of soft skills, work readiness, monitoring and evaluation through digital. So every YES youth that gets placed gets a smartphone that is finally 0-rated app. Vodacom has been very generous in 0 rating the material that goes through. So we deliver, it's push-pull, we deliver content to youth no matter where they are. They can be in Bushbuck Ridge or Sandton. And they're getting the same content on that phone and we're monitoring them. And then the third area that we're doing a lot of innovation in is this topic that we're talking about, entrepreneurship and enterprise development. We realize that there are limited places in our first economy for youth. And whilst we encourage companies to invest in youth jobs and put them internally in their infrastructure, a lot of these youth a lot of our youth can't get to the centers of the economy. And the jobs there are often very high skilled, which shuts them out. So we're investing in hubs at community level. We're taking high technology into a community and giving youth the chance to become small business owners. And that's where we're going to get our multiplier effect on job creation. So this is about local economic development, creating opportunities, especially for young women and young mothers, closer to where their children are in the community.
All right, great. All right, just to say that, of course, we'll start the conversation up here and keep it up in the boardroom, but then we'll open it up as well, too, because I want to involve as many of you as well in the conversation as we go along. So we'll have our initial exchanges up here first. Then let me come back to you, because part of you can't solve a problem until you've properly identified it. And I think if there's something South Africans we are certainly not weak on, or we're really good at, is diagnosing problems. But you were actually, before I stopped, you were about to say, suggesting that perhaps we haven't correctly identified what the issues are and how we begin to solve them.
Yes, that's exactly how I feel, but I will use different terminology from yours.
Sure.
I think with regards to youth unemployment, we have looked at it from a perspective of giving a person an opportunity to gain work experience. But what happens after that? For instance, let's talk about the internship programs and also the YES program. Yes, the intention is there to provide all that which has been said by Tashmila. But then again, how sure are we that that actually happens within that context? Because the impetus behind internships is to upskill a person to a point where they develop the technical skills, the psychological capacity and maturity to cope within a work environment, and also other things that I feel are left out in those programs. So it is not just about providing a job for the sake of providing a job, but upskilling a person. And once more, there is a social element to it. Once a person is employed, there are certain expectations that the person should have, especially for people of my race. So if you have a job for the sake of having a job, but you still cannot take care of yourself socially and economically, the job becomes redundant. And I can confidently say that in a lot of these programs, according to what I've observed and in my personal experience, a lot of people, after that 12 months or 24 months, they come out demotivated, de-skilled, and disempowered, and they feel that their education did not actually help them in any meaningful way, which is why we need to develop a standard structure of these programs, and we need to be able to have monitoring and evaluation mechanisms that actually make sure that the intent is equal to the outcomes of the program. We need to produce a holistic young person who's able to cope, not only to enter the job market, but is able to cope, survive, and thrive.
Lisa, let me come to you here at this point, because the narrative has been driven that one of the ways that we're going to deal with the issue of unemployment or youth unemployment is through entrepreneurship. And to what extent is that, in fact, going to be the answer? Because and then you have government making a commitment, like making 2 million jobs, new jobs, for young people in the next 10 years. And then we're told that government's job is not to create employment, but to create an environment conducive to employment. So, are we, in as far as that's concerned, entering this from the right point of departure?
So there's a lot of debate and there's a lot of complexity within that debate. But the first thing I would want to say is that entrepreneurial competence can be taught. Technical skills can be taught, and you need a combination of that. I think that employment can also be a pathway to entrepreneurship. So when we are reaching youth and we put youth through a new venture creation program, the biggest challenge is that if they don't have a viable business concept and they don't have a going concern at the time they come into the program, the research shows that the ability to use that kind of qualification to then end up with a going business, a successful business at the end, is low. But if you take somebody who's got a viable business concept and who has a going concern, then adding skills and developing competencies is important. But what I want to say is that that dream can only become a reality if we start recognizing that it's not a single intervention. It's multiple interventions from multiple role players. Not one person in the room can say, I've got the answer. It's about how do we integrate everyone's contribution and catapult it into that reality. So I just want to come in and say that so qualifications alone is not going to work, and we've seen that. The reality is we sometimes have too much of a short-term focus, a 12-month focus, rather than a medium to long-term focus. Cooperative development takes time. Access to information, markets, and finance takes time in terms of achieving that growth. So what we do want to see is we want to couple applied learning through peer networks. Networks and networking develops competencies of confidence. It expands opportunities to access both jobs and otherwise. We need to recognize that not everyone has an aptitude and an appetite to become an entrepreneur.
Yes.
But creativity, which I think came out strongly for me in the president's speech, creativity is key. We need to harness creativity within and outside of the workplace. So within corporates, we need to harness creativity. We need to look at how do we build problem-solving capabilities within our workforce and our future workforce. We need to help individuals to identify what the problem is they're trying to solve at a consumer level. At a Gen conference, the one example that stood out for me, and it's an example I reflect on continuously, is a few years ago when they developed the self-check-in kiosks at the airport. They were solving for a problem that we stand in queues and we waste time. So time is money, queues is a waste of time. Now we are checking in online. So over time, the problem changes. Being able to diagnose and solve for a problem is something that will result in entrepreneurial opportunities. I'll pause there.
Yeah, and Lebogang, just to come to you, in terms of changing the mindsets and getting younger people, especially when you're working in a rural area, so where access to opportunities and exposure tends to be limited. I wonder how you are driving that, and what are the kind of messages that you are sending, and what you are in turn are seeing from the young people that, in rural communities, particularly young people with disabilities that you spoke of, who generally are probably less exposed to some of these things, to say that this message that you're constantly you're hearing, and it's not their fault, by the way, that the government keeps promising them jobs, but they don't seem to materialize. How are you now trying to change the mindset to say that perhaps the solution is not in waiting for Pretoria to deliver?
Definitely. Firstly, we need to get to a point where booklets are converted into African languages. Point number one. The fact that the president wants to push to encourage reading at a young age, it's an acknowledgement that as young people, when it comes to English, it's cram and pass to get a qualification and leave. So what we do is we use our African languages to find solutions. Two, we have community influence centers. We work with the royal leaders, the traditional leaders, because when business goes into their communities, they don't even engage them. A community leader has more influence than a politician. There is someone a community meeting and 10,000 people show up because, for example, with Queen Muchachi in Bulobedu, she's an influence center. So we've already spoken to her. We are going there in August. We're working together in that community to address the issues in our community. And we're saying, lead. This is your constituency. You can't sit here and say you're waiting for a grant from Minister Dlamini Zuma. Yeah, I don't want to commit a presidential error. So that's, yeah, we know. The past 9 years, there are a lot of presidential errors. So what we've decided to do is, Titi, let's be honest.
Yeah.
In this country, music and sports are the biggest influence. Casper Nyovest fills up a pub in Bulobedu. Why are we
He
not
fills
using-
up everything.
Yes. Why don't we get Casper to lead these opportunities? Because that's the language they understand. The PowerPoint, it's not working with us, TT. It's
A new way of thinking. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Lebogang, let me come to you, Tash, as well, on the issue of what Liesl also touched on, that entrepreneurship can actually be taught. But one thing as well that about entrepreneurship is that you cannot even begin to start thinking about, or in an entrepreneurial manner, that kind of mindset, when you've never even been exposed to the
Exactly.
world of work yourself. You've never worked a job in your life. So how do you start thinking along those lines about what problem can I go and solve out there? You know, how many successful entrepreneurs, or entrepreneurs for that matter, that are successful have, or that have actually ventured entrepreneurship, have never worked?
So I mean, this is. I think I'll integrate a lot of the points that are being made. It's very hard to start a business if you've never worked in a business. And whilst you might have a very creative idea, it's the nuts and bolts of financial management, the technical stuff, and very importantly, to the point made earlier, the psychology of being in a job and the psychology of running a business. A really interesting World Bank study on 1,500 businesses, micro enterprises in Togo. And they did randomized groups. One group got technical training on how you run a business with the books and marketing, and the other got the psychological constructs around entrepreneurship, on building resilience. And after 5 years tracking those businesses, the teams that got the psychological training actually far outperformed the technical skills. So this idea of holistic training in that 1 year of years is really important to us, and absolutely the way you teach it needs to be peer-led. So this app that we've built, the content is not PDF or PowerPoint. It's stories of young people made soap opera style, navigating the world of work, and how they go through these lessons and learn from the protagonist and the antagonist. They're really entertaining stories. So we really do need to innovate the way we use the time that we have young people in these businesses, in these structured programs, that we get creative about giving them those tools. And they have this innate creativity. So VW did 560 jobs with Yes. They put some in the Uitenhage plant, some in their dealerships. One of the guys, just in 2 months on the job, has already sold 2 cars for the dealership. So we went, and yeah, it was brilliant. So we try to understand, what has this guy learned that he's doing so well? He's not waiting at the dealership. He got a little module on how do I add value to my business. He understood that customers don't have the time to come to the dealership. This bright young guy goes out to community events, takes people who are interested in cars to get the credit check done because they don't know how to go about it. And so he's built this whole little value chain to be able to sell for VW.
Fantastic.
So they can bring this creativity in, they just need some of these tools.
And by the way, if you want to pick up on something that one of our panelists is saying, please feel free to jump in. We don't, you know, that's how things work in a boardroom. We don't wait for your turn. So coming to you, Mfundo, something that you touched on about, you know, the economy of the 21st century. We are sitting here with a bit of a dilemma in the sense that we are trying to create jobs for the unemployed of now, young people of today.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we have a challenge of having to prepare young people for the jobs of tomorrow.
Yep.
Some of which are not even identified as yet or defined.
Well, that is true. The fact of the matter is that to the extent that the problem is structural, it's not going to be solved in the economy of yesterday. That's a reality that we've got to accept. You can see we're now on a low growth path, and really what's distinctive about this cycle, to the extent that it is a cycle, is that this is a slow squeeze. So we've got to go back to address the wholesome growth agenda for the economy, and that requires that we lift overall levels of confidence so that we can unlock investment, and investment will drive growth, and then employment creation is a consequence of getting all of that alignment right. That's the first thing. Second, the unemployment challenge has now reached crisis proportion. I think that is common cause. And to solve for that, we have to accept as a point of departure that there's no silver bullet, there's no single solution to this, including entrepreneurship is not a silver bullet to that. The solutions have to be medium and long term, in as much as we address immediate issues. So we've got to look at the education system. To the point raised, we've got to be addressing both the skills acquisition, technical skills, as well as the psychological changes that we've got to go through as we change the curriculum, preparing the young force for the world of work that lies ahead. It seems to me that if you want to talk entrepreneurship, there's no escaping the fact that you must have some knowledge, you must have some skills base, you must have some experience base in order to identify the opportunities in the market. Okay, it stems from that. Then, having identified the opportunity, you've got to have a value proposition for your clients. You've got to differentiate yourself. And so all the principles of 7 Ps of marketing come into play. We're in a country that doesn't have sufficient offering in terms of venture capital or angel investors, and so access to finance is another obstacle. We can address that creatively, as everybody suggested, but it does mean assuming higher levels of risk in order to support. So entrepreneurship takes all of those elements into account in driving value creation in the market. In and of itself, it can help to create jobs, but it is not a substitute for the economy on a grand scale to create the employment opportunities that are required. And that is what we've got to focus on.
Can I jump in there?
Sure.
So we talk about venture capital and we talk about funding for these, the next Elon Musks. But there's this grassroots level of mom and pop stores, bakers and candlestick makers. The Swiss ambassador never loses an opportunity to mention that 70% of the Swiss don't go to university. They start applying for apprenticeship jobs when they're in high school. So they start getting a sense of what is out there in the market. They get an apprenticeship at the hairdresser or the local baker and get into these sorts of skills from a very young age. And these are not reinventing the wheel kind of businesses, but these are solid businesses that keep a family together, that keep the kids in school. So I also think we need to differentiate between the type of entrepreneurship that is this first economy entrepreneurship that's going to be these high-flying businesses, and also just these grassroots level solid businesses that can trade in communities and keep a family.
And employ.
And employ.
Yeah, absolutely.
Up to 10 people.
I want to come in on the issue of access to finance. So we work very closely with our partners, the DSBD, CEDA, and CIFA, and we have a wide stakeholder base, and we consult. I love talking to people, and we talk a lot. And there's different perspectives around this issue of access to finance. There's one perspective that said there is money available. What's not available is the viable business concept in which to invest in and the competencies to ensure that individual or entrepreneur or set of entrepreneurs or cluster cooperative, that they have the skills necessary to be able to realize a return on that investment. Yep. So it's a chicken and egg, do they need the money first, or do they need the skills to be able to access the money? Okay. And CIFA has informed us that they struggle to issue high risk finance, and even at the DSBD where they have grant products available because of the lack of competencies. Yeah. And so that's where the integrated response really comes in. And I think there's another question I want to pose is to say, the reality is that grit, you mention it, the ability to persevere and have a focus, in terms of pursuing an interest and maintain the course, stay the course.
And that can be taught also.
And that can be taught, right? Yeah. But I think that for me, there's often trade-offs between our core business as we do things now and, what our core mandate is or where our core revenue comes from and the future. And investing in the future and resourcing that future solution. Yeah. So just to say that CETAs conduct research, and we need to be looking at future jobs. So the Services CETA is about to release a future job study that looks at redundant jobs, that looks at new jobs. And I'm going to conclude on one other point and related to a question that maybe some of the board members want to comment on. Yeah. But the reality of being able to teach coding and data analytics, not just through schools, but to our employees. Retrenchment announcements are big and looming and growing. How do we retrain and reskill for the current and the immediate future?
It's a great segue to bring in Ugcina here on this one, because I'm wondering about what kind of conversations that you are having around entrepreneurship and the buzzword. We all like to talk about fourth industrial revolution, but try and ask a few people what that actually means. As academia, people who are there, the co-face of training and skilling young people, what are the kind of conversations that you're having, particularly in a rural province to a large extent like the Free State, where we know about the issues facing the province there? not a clean audit in sight and stuff like that. What are the conversations that you're having?
Okay, let me first chip in before I forget
Yeah.
on the point about entrepreneurship. It is quite saddening and disheartening that entrepreneurship has now become the very last option for us to find ways to survive as a country. I think entrepreneurship should actually be the first option over and above everything else. But it is quite sad and disheartening, and I am not pleased with that. To respond to your question around the fourth industrial revolution, for me, it is quite exciting to talk about coding and all this tech conversation. But then again, I don't think we as South Africa have prepared ourselves adequately to participate fully and to derive benefit from the fourth industrial revolution. Because of these advancements in technology and so on, we have seen quite a number of companies letting go of thousands of employees. That has a that further perpetuates the suffering of communities and the people that actually depend on those people who have been retrenched. So we need to find a way as a country. I'm not sure if it's not too late, but we need to find a way to derive true benefit from this fourth industrial revolution, because countries that are producing these technologies are deriving employment out of it for their people. But we as South Africans are losing, yet we are still excited about it. And I think we need to find ways to position ourselves in this fourth industrial revolution debate. What do we stand to benefit? What do we stand to lose? And how do we plan towards moving forward and in an endeavor to position ourselves in a manner that actually benefits us, especially those people that are in rural provinces. You talk about the fourth industrial revolution to a person in Ngangelizwe Township, Mthatha. You talk to a person about the fourth industrial revolution to a person in Lusikisiki who can't even program a phone, a person who can't even withdraw money from the ATM. So I think we need to move together as a nation and stop this elitist tendency that we have as a country to assume that because we're sitting on this platform in Sentin, everybody's okay because we're okay. I think we need to be more realistic and to find ways to give the things that are important to us, meaning to those who are otherwise marginalized from them.
Ramodike, what are you going to say to Queen Mojaji when you meet her about this fourth industrial revolution?
Well, Abon, you know, that's why I'm saying let's deal with messaging. South Africa is very good with slogans. And a slogan, next year we'll have a new one. We're Tumamina, now we're going to have another slogan. Let's practicalize interventions. And then I want to ask a question to the private sector. Are they ready to trust young companies with their money? I agree the promised land, Vision 2030, belongs to us. They can't finance us. They say we are high risk. So how are you going to get to my promised land if you are not walking the road with me? So I think that's the honest conversation private sector must have. Are you ready to fund us or you are ready to lecture us? Those are two different. If you want to give us a master class, take us to Gibbs, we will come, we will eat, we will go back to our shebins and taverns in Diepsloot and continue with the struggle. If you are ready to do things our way, listen to us. Fees must fall. Almost costed the country the union buildings because the country doesn't listen. The president was supposed to come out and address the young people. He delayed. They vandalized the property. So always saying to business, when you have these grand scale ideas on youth, you can't do this thing without us. You are coming with old tendencies. You are coming with Nkalagata now. And the song of the year now is Holy Ray, Deeper. But you are still playing Lebumatosa now. You are irrelevant.
All right.
You are irrelevant to us as young people.
It's a challenge that faces... absolutely. It is a challenge that faces us as a society. It is not one that is only confronting the people that are sitting up here. It confronts all of us, and we need to find innovative solutions to it as well in order to secure this future that we speak of for South Africa. So with that, I'd like to invite you as well to join in the conversation if you want to make a... Let me suggest that if you're going to make ask a question of our panelists, let it be a question. Let's keep the preamble short. so that we can involve as many people as possible. You know who we are up here, so please introduce yourself first before putting your question. All right, I already have a hand up here in the front. If we can get a microphone up here to the front, and then let's use the remaining 25 minutes to get as many of you in your inputs in as well. Over to you, sir.
Hi to the panel. My name is Tsepo Sofotlelo, and my question really is it stems from a scenario I've been having a couple of times, because whenever I interview young people,
Sofotlelo, what kind of line of work are you in? Or
we are in communications, corporate communication, reputation management.
All right.
And whenever we interview a lot of youth coming through, you find that the degrees that they study, it's really degrees that the economy has a surplus of. For example, you have your marketers, you have your communicators. But if you find one youth who has studied engineering, you make one phone call, and the next day somebody's calling them and offering them an internship with the promise of having a job. What conversations, and my question to the panel is, what conversations are we having with our youth to say, guys, at least for you to get into your foot in the door in corporate, perhaps we need more engineers, we need more chartered accountants, we need more doctors. Is that not maybe another conversation that we need to start having over and above entrepreneurship? Thanks.
Okay, great. Let's take a couple of other questions, and then we will come. And of course, I need eyes on the back of my head as well here. All right, let's get the mic this side as well. Maybe we'll take 2 or 3 questions first up, and then we'll get our panelists to answer. Maybe it'll be easier as well if you just maybe single out somebody that you think might best respond to your question.
My name is Siti Sorobe. Outi. You said a mouthful.
Eta Grootman.
This is a very good coming together. But kinalwena fela youth iso.
Yeah.
What's that my timer? Lima old lady.
I don't know where to.
And baetang marbiza tsa go sentin. Why not take this discussion to the relevant people, the youth? Us, youth.
Yeah.
In the townships.
Yeah.
Not
Bulobedi, we are tired of Soweto.
but we need to go and speak to people that are relevant to this conversation, and in the communities where this thing is relevant. You would come to Sentin, you're talking to cheese boys and cheese girls and old people, when Alex is just behind us here. Let's take this conversation to Alex. Let's take it to Diepkloof. Let's take it to Diepsloot.
Thank you, young man.
And it's a pity that the BCX and the Sunday Times top dogs have left. Because just think about this. IOD, please, the next one should not be held in Sentin. It should be taken to the communities out there, so that we include most of the people.
All right, let me take one more person then, and if it's a question, or the lady there at the back. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Gail Fasahi, and I'm from Joburg TV. My question is for Ms. Liesel. Currently, I'm interning as well for CETA, by the way. 2 months left of my internship, and I'm stressing. I've noticed that the loophole in CETA is the fact that they offer internships, they give us experience. However, there's no long-term goal. We have no jobs. I'm in the communications department sector. Our Tabiso, you actually mentioned something, give engineering. Tell us what we're supposed to study so that we can actually have jobs, have options to actually get jobs as well. Stressing on jobs and longer term goals by CETA. Please help us.
Awesome. Thank you very much. So let's bring it up to maybe, I don't know if you want to start with the first question from Mr. Sofotlelo there, about the kind of training that we are, is it targeted? I mean, are we having conversations, for example, with the private sector or the business sector to say what are the skills that are required out there, so that we're not churning out, people that are with skills that are not relevant to the workplace?
Titi, starting the conversation at the point of the interview is late in the day. That's not the way it starts, because you can't get the skill set right at that point. So you've got to go back and say, what's our education system? The single, in my view, area of failure in the last 25 years is an education system that is not producing what is required in the economy. So we've got to get that right. Skills development in a society is a long-term commitment. So we've got to get that right, get the right output out of the education endeavor. And then in the conversations between private sector and providers of education, seek to get the alignment of what is required. That's the first thing. I do recognize the short-term pressures. Somebody is having a contract at CETA, it's expiring in 2 months' time, so they're worried about the short run. But the basic problem of addressing youth unemployment at 55% is not going to be solved in 2 months. It's going to be solved by addressing these structural deficiencies that we're talking about. And we can do this both in the formal setting of schooling system and post-secondary education. We can also do that informally. We've got to be investing in skills acquisition, concrete skills, because the underpin of this entire conversation is the skills deficit that the country is sitting with. And that is what we've got to be addressing.
Can we take Tsepo's question and just flip it though?
Yeah.
Is that also maybe we need to rethink the way we're training people? Not saying to young people, you've got the wrong degree, but or qualification, but how are we training you? So instead of 3-year-long programs where they have to sit and theoretically learn things that don't prepare them for the workplace, there are so many new techniques to within 6 months with VR, giving people training in things like railway electricians, solar panel training, so you can give people skills in a shorter space of time, allow micro-credentials to start becoming acceptable in the workplace, and maybe part of this is just changing the way we deliver training to them to help them be more relevant.
Yeah. So it's the issue of not about what you're qualified to do, but what can you do?
Allow me to give my contribution on the mismatch of skills and what is demanded in the labor market, with of course a reflection on the oversupply of some qualifications for which there is no demand. I think the first step to dealing with that is to create platforms where the Department of Higher Education, on behalf of the universities, is able to sit down with the private sector, with government and also other role players to determine what is it that is required in the labor market and how can that conversation then be used as a platform through which decisions are made in terms of what the universities offer and, you know, the demand and so on. I also want to chip in on the question at the back there.
Yeah, from Gail.
I also have the same question. It's not an answer per se, but one thing I problematize with the YES program, internships, learnerships, and so on, is that there seems to be a short-term focus. There is no long-term focus. We see that lady there, that lady over there, has been through this program, but she doesn't know what's next. And that's the question that resonates among a lot of young people who have been through these programs. And I'm hoping that since private sector is here, they can perhaps commit to doing something about this problem. Young people are sick and tired of being in your offices, doing some work, gaining some skill, and then going, and then after that period, that skill becomes redundant. And also, quickly, there's a spatial element to all of this. Jobs are centered in places like Sandton, which are, of course, economic hubs because of apartheid spatial planning. Government has done very little to transform the spaces of South Africa to allow any and everyone an opportunity to participate in the economy. I dare to challenge the private sector to please invest in rural communities and also in townships, because young people who are in those communities are quite capable. They've got capabilities, they've got talents, they've got the education, but there is a disconnect between them being able to access you and the programs and the opportunities that you have for them. Thank you very much.
I think we need to just let Nedbank.
But that's not how investment decisions get made, unfortunately. Okay. You've got to say
It's business, not CSI.
you've got to say there's a business proposition that you're addressing, and you have a viable market in which that proposition can be tested. And then on the basis of that, once you deploy the capital, then you'll generate the requisite returns. All of those elements have to be in place. Clearly, we do start with a deficit, that it's a highly concentrated economy, and between the urban and the rural sectors, there's big variance. That's the hand we dealt. We've got to start from where we are with what we have. Sure, I would identify with your desire for greater distribution of that economic footprint, but that takes place over time. In the meantime, there are interventions that are necessary that focus on the individuals, the skills and capabilities that we bring to the market, and then even greater flexibility in the labor market so that we can absorb the unemployed. It seems to me that going forward, the services sectors are going to be required to carry a larger share of the load. But if you listen to the conversation, it's all driven by manufacturing sector as the backbone of new employment creation. But the data doesn't support that.
Yeah.
But just
Lisa,
Nedbank's,
just before you-
Nedbank's 80% of their placements, by the way, are rural.
Yeah.
So of the 3,300 jobs, they're in rural KwaZulu-Natal. The places where we're delivering phones, we've run out of road, and the couriers have to walk 3 kilometers to get to those youth. So there's a structured intervention here to make sure that these jobs are spread into rural areas and communities using partners.
The original question was actually meant for you, Lisa. I wonder, do you have an answer for it?
I can give multiple perspectives because I think that from the very start of this, in the plenary session, it was around what can we all do? What is our collective contribution? And what can we do individually within our companies? What can we do within our organizations, our entities, and then as individuals in our communities? So what I wanted to say is I always try and put myself in everyone's shoes. So Tsepo, what I would do in your instance is that every single company, by virtue of your standard industrial classification code at SARS, is demarcated to fall under a CETA. Don't sit on the sideline. Go and speak to your CETA. Go and tell them what your scarcity is. CETAs are researching the mismatch between skill, supply, and demand. And they're also looking at what's in their pipeline. So over the last 3 to 5 years, what have they spent on which qualifications have they spent money on and prioritized discretionary grants. They're also looking at the workplace skills plans that get submitted for when you claim your mandatory grants, and they're looking at the data and information, and they're looking at where corporates are training, where are they spending money, to understand what that future need is. The reality is career guidance and career exhibitions, CETAs do that, but it happens also in universities, TVET colleges, and corporates. Nothing stops a corporate from going to schools. If you're based in a particular province, as opposed to national, you can target schools in your areas quite easily, and you can start telling them these are the kinds of skills and qualifications and occupations that we need where there's a shortage. Don't go into this qualification because there's an oversupply in the labor market. So for me, if it's going to be the skills that I need to drive my future revenue and growth, I'm going to do and invest in that kind of conversation, and I'm going to take responsibility to have those conversations rather than sit back and wait. You can't be passive. You can't sit back and wait. You need to engage, even if the institutions are not functional or effective, or there's some other complexity that happens in every company and every public entity, government department. There is those kinds of inefficiencies. On the other issue of the internship, if I may.
Sure.
Is just to say that I actually have an intern in my department ending in October. So I realize that there is a big responsibility. It's not just about taking interns and reaching a number. There is a responsibility within corporate to ensure that we provide guidance and support and talk sooner rather than later about what is your next step. You can't wake up 2 months before the end of your internship and go, well, I haven't done anything about my future. You need to have conversations from the beginning. So we need to guide interns that are within our care to say, what are you going to do after your internship? That conversation should start in month 1. I'm going to go back and have that conversation immediately when I get to the workplace. The reality is that sometimes interns are not properly supported in the workplace. They're not supported in the qualification that they've graduated in either. There are learnerships that take place and you end up with a qualification. But in my instance, the intern that's working and learning business administration skills and office administration skills is actually studying to be a social worker. So her future doesn't sit within the services sector. I know this because I've engaged with her around her interests, her qualifications, her part qualifications. So I would have to look for a career path in a different space, not our space. As an employer, we have taken in interns. But interns, you know, what makes one intern different from another? Creating a network, making yourself indispensable. So in conclusion on that point, I would want to say is that it's not just about what your host employer can do for you, it's about what you're doing for yourself. It's about the network that you're creating, how indispensable you are. We are looking at issues around employment readiness, especially pre-internships. And the reality now is the conversation is shifting to how do we use platforms, what platforms are available to be able to assist young people to find jobs. I heard on the radio yesterday about giraffe.co.za. I haven't investigated it, but you use them. There are many such platforms. And so we need to inform our young people. What is a CV? How do you do a CV? How do you get out there? What is LinkedIn? Why aren't you on LinkedIn? Go and take a professional photo of yourself. Don't have that one with you and your friends having a drink.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Let's I want to give Lebohang an opportunity if we can, before we take one last round then of questions.
Titi, State of the Nation address. The president was very specific. The next 10 years, implementation. Me, I'm a young person and I stand for honesty. We should not sit in forums to defend our positions. What we should be doing now, Lebu should come with his calendar for the next 5 years. Yes should come with his calendar for the next 5 years. You come with your calendar. You come with your calendar. We have a national master plan. We focus on implementation. Because I feel like we are discussing semantics and this and that. The elephant is bigger than a lion. Unemployment is a problem. We need to have a practical solution. We need to say in the next 6 months, 1, 2, 3. Me in the next 6 months, I'm going to Bulobedu, I'm going to Abatembu, I'm on the ground. You see, so number 2, the SETAs don't have a consumer engagement budget. They don't have money to communicate their services, but they have grants to give to people. Maybe we must reduce the grants and give them more money to communicate the critical skills we need. Because I know it because I'm here. There is nothing wrong with this event being in Sentin, this director's event. We, the foot soldiers, we do our work, we come and report here. We don't have to take this to Alexander, but by Alexander overexposed. Yeah,
Sure
they're overexposed. They are not the only informal settlement in South Africa.
Okay,
So
all right.
companies, they must stop treating persons with disabilities and young people in need of support as Mandela Day case studies. Because we only see you on Mandela Day. Where are you the rest of the year?
All right. All right, let's take a couple of more questions and then we have to wrap it up because our time's almost up. Let me take you first, the lady there with a maroon jacket, and then I'll come to you, sir. Then I think let's probably make it maybe one more as well. All right, just 3 more questions, and then I'm afraid we're going to have to wrap it up. Have we got a microphone there? So the lady with the burgundy, I think it is, jacket? Yeah. I'm a man, I don't know colors.
Morning, delegates. My name is Mashudu. I'm from Asupo Life. I have just recently went through a period of unemployment for 3 months between the period of December and February. And the reason for that was I had just completed my honors, which was sponsored by SETA. They paid my employer and all that. And after finishing the studies, I wanted to have a conversation with my manager. Okay, now I'm done. Let's discuss the way forward. I'm considering doing masters and all that. To find out that manager only has grade 12, he couldn't advise me on which way to go forward. And I got frustrated, and then I decided to leave. Now, the question that I have for Tashmir and Liesel is, what initiatives are you guys doing to help young people identify the positions and the jobs that they actually want? Because in my case, when I was job hunting in the 3 months period that I was unemployed, I was very picky. I got job offers and I said, no, this is not what I want, but this is what I want, and this is what I can offer. And that's how I ended up getting my current position. So what are the initiatives that you guys are doing to prepare the young people to properly identify correct jobs for them?
Thank you, Mashudu. Let's give it to the gentleman there, just in front there.
Good morning, Board Chair. It's more of a statement, if I may, on a practical case study that's working, that really combines what everybody's talking around the table now and what the Chief Justice said earlier this morning. So I run a global headhunting firm, so I understand skills and the skills marketplace. But what we've done, and I come from a farming background, okay, so what we've done is we've worked with one of our team whose parents run an AIDS orphanage in Soweto, and we've created a food security program. And we now employ 15 full-time staff, and those 15 full-time staff make 10,000 meals a week for orphan children. That's phase one. Phase two is we're now going to grow the production significantly, and we're going to be selling the produce with offtake agreements. And all that money will come back and will self-sustain that entity. And we then give the keys of that entity to the team so that they run their organization. I'll oversee it from a high ground. And as we then continue to grow out this, we're going to create ancillary businesses. So we're going to create a distribution business. We're going to create a packaging business. We're also going to create a trust that receives profits that gets distributed to the team so that they can then leave the organization and then start their own entrepreneurial businesses. It works, and it's self-sustaining, and the contribution that it makes feeds children, and then we're going to create an education fund as well, so the community will grow. So please excuse me, everyone, for saying this, but I have a very simple concept that works, and we would love for people to come on board and help us really motor this train moving forward. So I'm going to be around for the rest of the afternoon. Please come and talk to me. It works.
Great pitch. All right, thank you so much there. Now, one last contribution, please, to the lady there in the blue suit.
That's exactly what that investment does. Good morning, everyone. I am Ntabisa Mposhoko, Commercial Director for LFP Training. My concern is on the experience that the youth needs to have in terms of them to be on board. I am specifically speaking to LEBSA. The rate of unemployment as it is right now is crazy. And as corporate is retrenching people day in and day out, it becomes a problem for the youth, our youth, to be employed. I want to say we need to redirect the experience through the skills development, where the youth go back and start volunteering in different organizations. We need, as corporate, go back and take in youth that we can appoint in terms for them to volunteer, so that when they go to Nedbank and say, I am this person looking for this employment, they don't say to them, we cannot employ you because you are not experienced enough. The companies will ask the youth for 5 or 6 years experience. When I ask a youth for 5 or 6 years experience, I am literally saying, I cannot take you on board. I understand. Is because the company would not want to lose time in training this particular individual who comes in with a PhD or a diploma, a degree. We need people that will hit the ground running, but we still need to give them experience for them to hit the ground running. The last one that I think as well speaks to us as youth, particularly the interns. When the corporate companies employ or takes interns, they need to have a rollout plan.
Okay.
Have a career path, a career plan for this particular individual. Say to them, we're taking you on board for 6 months. After 6 months, there's a succession plan that we want to see you sitting in this position. And therefore, there won't be a panic for a particular individual who is an intern who is saying in 2 months' time, in a month's time, I don't know where I'm going. In conclusion, let's relook, review the skills development in companies, in any level, in however way, to get our youth employable and not burden the companies that needs to take them on board.
All right, thank you so much for that, Ntabisa. All right, I'm going to ask Tashu, maybe you can go first and just keep it very brief because our time is up, and just your closing remarks and especially responding to what Mashudu was asking. And then I'm going to also come, just give an opportunity to everybody as we wrap up, just to have your final concluding remarks.
I thought that was a brilliant question, Mashudu, because you know, we keep talking about grads and people looking for internships, but 56% of our youth don't have a matric certificate, those entering the labor force. And this idea of profiling and helping people understand what they can be good at when their confidence is shot, when they don't believe they have a place in the labor market because of not even having a matric certificate, makes these modern technologies, and this is where I have to disagree with our friend from the Free State around technologies disintermediating. This is where we have the best opportunity for them to open new jobs, to raise quality of life, and to give young people psychometric profiling that's game-based. And that's what we're experimenting with. It's 3 games. It helps you build a beautiful 98 variable profile of a young person, and it gives you a soft skills profile, which is so important to direct someone who has no experience, who has no CV, to say these are the areas that you are naturally inclined to be good at. So we've got another matching platform that's being built with AI, and the more data we feed it, the better it's going to get at matching those young people. So that's what we're doing on that side. And then in terms of the value chain program, one of the investments that Nedbank has made, so this is the packaging and the food garden, the investment that Nedbank's made with Yes in Tembisa has taken aquaponics and hydroponics technology into a township. We have high production organic produce from a tunnel garden that's a working farm. Enterprise development is going to come in, and these are going to be container-based urban farmers. We're exporting high-quality organic lettuce from Tembisa from young farmers, and we're bringing money back into the township. We've got a sanitary pad production line. This is all the same sort of principle about value chains and job creation. This is an investment in micro-manufacturing facility. We've got 12 young women recruited from the township who are working as Yes Youth in year 1, and in year 2 they'll be social entrepreneurs, and they will own the sanitary pad production. So those are the sorts of models that we think have legs.
All right. Mfunda, I want to just, as you also with your concluding remarks, and I want you to also in your conclusion, just reiterate the point that you're making, because I think it's important that we this message gets across, particularly to younger people, about how these investment decisions are made. Yeah.
Fact of the matter, Titi, in conclusion, I would say that the economy is performing well below potential. To create the employment levels we're talking about, we've got to get the economy growing. So there's got to be a common conversation about a sustainable growth strategy for this economy. Okay? So that the solutions are not at the margin, but they are the central focus. Number 2, we talk of digital as something still to come. We're lulling ourselves into false position here. It's upon us. It's happening already. Companies are investing significant amounts of money, and these structural shifts are taking place. Version of this is that the president talked of opening up the spectrum, which should lead to a rollout of 5G. 5G is not an upgrade of 4G. 5G is a different capability in terms of speed, in terms of storage capacity, in terms of cloud computing, which means a lot of services that will shift very quickly onto digital platforms. So we've got to be investing in this capability in training people in order to participate in this economy, so that we're not bystanders watching the game as it is being played by others.
All right.
This is urgent.
Yeah. Then let me pop back to you as well. Just your closing remarks then.
It is evidently clear that a lot is being done already to address the plight of young people who find themselves unemployed, and also those who are without education and training. But all of us, we can do more in our respective spaces that we work in. I think we should push this agenda further. I think there's also a need for employment services to address the special issue. That could be done through providing better information to work seekers in their respective places of location, and also connecting work seekers to employers, because that is one thing that is a problem. You find that there are people out there, but they don't know that there's actually a demand for them. You can quickly go on to LinkedIn right now. You'll find that there are master's graduates in the sciences, even in the economic sciences, who are without employment. That means, as much as we're saying there's a demand for them, they don't know that there actually is. Hence, they find themselves putting their CVs up there. So we need to work harder in terms of creating that connection. And also, we need to create, public employment. Public employment can assist those who are, unlike me, who don't have degrees. And we need to find a way in which we make that sustainable, because usually it's short term. The EPWP program is quite a short term, and I don't want to get into discussing what they get paid. I think if we do those and a bit more, we can take this country to a far better position. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Tina. And to you, Lebogang Ramodike?
Yeah, no, Titi, I think as young people, let's continue kicking these doors. The people with money will take us serious one day, and they'll fund us, and we'll move South Africa forward. But as a gesture to demonstrate to these CEOs or individuals in this room that you don't need to be a billionaire to make a difference in society. My sister, I will give you a job from the 1st of August. I'll pay you 6.5 a month. I'll give you a 3-year contract. Sure. I don't have money. I can afford 6.5 a month. That's
there
it.
you go.
You see, we've reduced one unemployed
Well, there you go.
person. So we need to move forward and stop talking and making big statements, get us into opportunities there. And I'm already hiring 10 social workers from child-headed homes to monitor these young people who are recipients of the bursaries. So in one financial year, I've hired 11 young people with no private sector backing.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, there, Lebogang Ramodike. And then a final word to you, Liesl Koshlek. Absolutely.
Thank you. So what we're going to be advocating for is an integration of skills development solutions that are relevant to entrepreneurs, recognizing that entrepreneurs need different things at different stages of their business life cycle and depending on levels of intensity. So what we're saying is that it's about bite-sized information, it's about business internships, it's about peer learning networks and creating them in every workplace, in every society, whether it's in a church, it doesn't really matter where it exists, but we need like-minded people to be solving problems, identifying problems, and coming up with solutions, whether they're funded through social entrepreneurship and a self-sustainability model, or whether it's a for-profit venture. We need business incubation sites that provide real and ongoing support, whether it's in a resident entrepreneur program or through I would say outpatient, but it's a non-resident model. We need to be able to help youngsters with viable business concepts. We've heard about one, social entrepreneurship. A viable business concept, is it replicable, is it affordable, and is there demand for the product? And I think that speaks for itself in terms of food generation. We need to ensure that business advisory services, which is an applied, mentored coaching model of services, is provided and available in providing quality services. We need to ensure that business development services are available for high growth, high potential enterprises. Having said that, we think there are combinations of practical solutions already on the table. I'm not sure that the State of the Nation addresses the mechanism through which that can come across, but it exists. We need to have a framework for public-private partnerships that enables easily enables public-private partnerships. I'm not sure that that exists. And we need to understand that there are successes and failures. There's a lot of information. There's a lot of initiatives. We need to measure impact. We need to understand root cause. We can't make sweeping statements that something isn't working unless we've really done a proper evaluation of impact and we've identified what the root cause is and we solve for the root cause. And then we need to each take personal and individual and collective responsibility to make a difference. And lastly, to say at speed. That's the takeout that I took. In terms of the current crisis, I think the last comment was taken, well taken. My takeout from SONA is we need it fast. We need to produce it at speed. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So that's Liesel Koschlich. She's Executive Manager responsible for Entrepreneurship and Corporate Development at Services SETA. Mfundo Kuhlo, Chief Operating Officer of Nedbank. Lebohang Ramudike, Chief Executive Officer of Big Brand Media. And of course, Tlina Tengwani, academic from the University of the Free State Xolxo campus. I want to thank you all for your inputs. And to you as well for being a part of the discussion. It's clearly that the challenges are many, but they're certainly not insurmountable, and we definitely do not have an opt-out option here. Thank you so much to everyone.